doctrine that we believe, that we wish to hide from anyone, because everything is pure and perfect and true and lovely and of good report, just like the fairest of 10,000, the lily of the valley, the lover of my soul, Jesus Christ our Lord. But Islam has much to hide. And maybe when I was younger, I had some doubts. Having a Muslim family and having a Christian family, being a hybrid vehicle, if you will. My mom didn't get any $4,500 rebate for the clunkers, but nevertheless, I wondered, could Islam really be true, being raised as a Christian? But the more I scratched the surface, the more I found that the Muslims who are in the know either do one of two things. In Saudi Arabia and in other places like the Taliban in Afghanistan and other places, they tell you exactly what Islam's all about. And it's exactly what Muhammad said. Fight and kill and slay the pagan wherever you find him. But the ones who are in the know in the West always lie, always cover, always deceive. And when I saw that Islam is not true. It is not the truth, because if it was the truth, why would people like this man, Roman Iqbal of CARE, lie to suppress the truth for his own objectives? The ends justifies the means, maybe to Muslims, folks, but not to Christians. Let's continue on. And so, he says here that according to Mehmet Kanner, Ergin Kanner, is very interesting. Ergin Kanner is a Turkish gentleman who grew up as a Muslim, and guess where he grew up? He grew up as a 16-year-old in Columbus, Ohio. He grew up in the very mosque that Rifka Berry's family was in. The Islamic Foundation of Central Ohio, out of which the Berry family mosque was started and remains connected. Kanner's father, the family mosque's architect, disowned his son. Why? Because he and his other brother converted to Christianity. Now a Baptist minister and president of Liberty Theological Seminary in Lynchburg, Virginia, Kanner is a well-known apologist for the Christian faith. The activity of that, it was issued a fatwa by Muslim opinion, a fatwa to do what? To kill this man. Why? Because he left Islam to Christianity. And therefore, Kanner has to have a lot of security around his home and other things. Kanner told the witnesses, death for apostasy from Islam is firmly rooted in the most sacred Muslim text, as we mentioned before, citing the Quran, the Hadith, collections about the Prophet Muhammad, which is the Hadith. There is also a consensus by all four schools of Sunni jurisprudence, Islamic jurisprudence, as well as Shiite jurists. The apostates from Islam must be put to death, and yet the Florida court says Rifka Berry is in no danger whatsoever. Meanwhile, as Mohammed Berry says there's no such thing as an honor killing, look at what happened in Italy just today. In Italy, honor killing in Italy, Muslim stabs his daughter to death for dating a non-Muslim. I believe this actually happened yesterday. There is no such thing as an honor killing, according to Mohammed Berry, Rifka Berry's father. But tell that to Sana Daphne. And then it says, Moroccan man accused of honor killing. A Moroccan man is facing murder charges after allegedly stabbing his 18-year-old daughter to death. Why? For falling in love with an older man in a small northern Italian town. Sana Dafani was stabbed in the throat while she was sitting in a car with her 31-year-old boyfriend in Montereale Vaslini, northwest of Trieste, late Tuesday actually. Her father, El Ketoui Dafani, was later detained by police and interrogated overnight. Some Italian news reports said he had made some admissions about being present at the scene of the alleged crime, but he also contradicted himself, so forth and so on. And we see that, according to the media reports, the victim's father blocked the car and threatened his daughter. Her boyfriend, Massimo De Biaso, tried to protect her from the attack and was injured in an alleged assault from her father. And remember, Rifka Berry's father, Mohammed Berry, says there is no such thing as honor killings. How come we have a Pakistani girl killed in Atlanta a few years ago? I forget what nationality, Muslim girl killed in Canada a couple years ago. 3 Muslim girls killed in Canada just this year, honor killings. And all of the parents were Muslim. Not one Jew, not even, what did you say, not even one Hare Krishna, not even one Scientologist. Tom Cruise wasn't in there. Can you believe it? No. Every time it was a Muslim. Why? Well, that's what our show is about. We want Muslims and Christians, we want people to answer. Why is it that in the news daily, Islam is always connected with violence, with killing, with war, with honor killings, with all sorts of things that our Bible teaches is sin. And yet Muslims continue to say Islam is peace. Islam is a loving religion. There is nothing about killing in Islam. But when we read our Quran and we read the Hadith, we find a very different story, which seems to corroborate the very violence that is taking place around the world today. Come forward, produce your evidence. If this is not the case, I ask our Muslim viewers to call in. 248-416-1300. We look forward to hearing from you and also from our Christian friends out there and whoever might be out there to call in and share your views on the news Muslims are making around the world today. Here's another news item real quickly that hasn't reached MSNBC. And I don't know why, but I don't think it's been on Fox News either. Ex-commandos rescue a U.S. woman imprisoned in an Arab home. Former IDF, that's Israeli Defense Force, commandos secretly entered a Palestinian Authority village on Monday and rescued an American woman and her 2.5-year-old son from her Muslim husband, who had beaten and held her captive for 3 years. The woman and child flew to the United States Wednesday night and are en route to her family's home in Ohio. Ohio seems to be just, you know, there's Amish in Ohio, but apparently there's a lot of Muslims in Ohio. And actually, the Amish got the Muslims beat, you know, because I went through Ohio just the other day, saw those Amish people. I mean, now they're really, the children are covered. And I mean, they're very, I mean, the Muslims drive cars. Really? The Amish ride horses. They got the buggy. Yeah, I tell you what, Muslims, they got you beat. But anyways, I don't think Muhammad drove a car. And we're supposed to follow Muhammad. Well, Muslims, you call in on that because I don't think Muhammad, there's a call right there. Muhammad did not drive a car. If you're going to follow the example of Muhammad, I think they should be like the Amish and be in buggies. And well, he didn't have a buggy. Camel.
But if he had one, it would be okay just for him to ride it, but nobody else.
Well, that's
at that
true.
Time.
That's true. Well, camel or a horse. I think that's the only thing that we know that the Prophet Muhammad rode according to the Hadith. Well, let's continue on. All right, let's go. We got just a couple more news items before the break. And then I know we've got a lot of callers that want to call in and share your views on the news that Muslims are making around the world today. Let's continue on. Her family, that is the American woman who married a Muslim Palestinian, that Muslim Palestinian took her to his home and apparently beat her and held her captive for 3 years. It says she had no idea of where she was and was unable to escape, Minashi reported. The woman wore Muslim clothes, including a veil over her face, and the man threatened her that she never would see her child again and that security agents would pick her up if she fled. She was kept under guard to make sure she could not reveal details of her ordeal over the telephone. Her family, knowing she was somewhere in Israel, unsuccessfully tried to get the U.S. consulate in eastern Jerusalem and the Palestinian Authority to help. And the family turned to a friend, a former Israeli combat soldier who contacted some of his friends in Israel, who was also a former commandos in the Israeli Defense Forces. The commando, in particular, who did not reveal his full name, explained that he gathered 9 comrades and they used their own intelligence connections to locate the house where she was being held. So forth and so on. And it says down here, her husband, they carried out the secret operation in broad daylight without resistance and when the captor was not home. Whisked the woman and the child into a car, brought them to an apartment already prepared for them near the American consulate. And it says now that they've been on their way. They're probably in Ohio now. They left recently to the airport to New York and then on to Ohio. And so this woman and her child hopefully are safe back in Ohio. But I hope, Brother Hamoudi, that they don't go to that mosque.
Yeah, really.
You know, stay away from the Rifka Berry family, right? All right, well, let's go through a couple more news items and into the break. Here's something very interesting. A Dutch court blocks the football chant of Hamas. The football chant of Muslims in Dutch, that's Holland, right? They said, Hamas, Hamas, Jews to the gas. That's the football chant that Muslims were chanting during soccer games in Holland. because the chant is insulting to Jews. That's why the court said that. Well, I would say, yeah, it probably is kind of insulting to Jews. Anti-Jewish football chants are illegal, from the Dutch News, September 16th. It goes on to say the case was brought before the High Court by a football supporter who had been sentenced to 80 hours community service and probation for 2 years by the lower court. The man refused to accept the judgment, saying that the chant forms part of the culture surrounding football. It is not used with the intention of insulting Jews, but to provoke other supporters, he said in his defense. Hamas, Hamas, Jews to the gas. I guess in Dutch, maybe that rhymes. It doesn't rhyme in English, but it doesn't sound too good. I don't know.
Either way. Yeah.
Well, we mentioned earlier a spa and retreat for terrorists in Oregon. Let's read that one. Muslim gets life in prison for running jihad training camp in Oregon. American Jihad update. All of this is in the United States. Most of this, not all of it. U.S. court sentences a man to life over Al-Qaeda camp. A Manhattan federal court sentenced a Lebanese-born Swedish man to life in prison on Tuesday for trying to establish an Al-Qaeda training camp in the United States and running websites on how to make bombs. Now, you know, I used to be in a town where they had a radio show that did the stupid criminal, the dumb criminal. Well, I'm sorry, but this sounds like the dumb criminal to me.
Bombs for dummies?
Bombs, well, but, you know, in the United States, we're going to make an Al-Qaeda training camp. I know Islam is making inroads to the United States, but that's a bit much to think you're going to get away with that. But apparently this individual thought he could. The sentence was handed down 4 months after Usama Abdullah Qasir, 43, was found guilty on 11 counts, including providing material support to Al-Qaeda and distributing information relating to weapons of mass destruction. The defendant is a clear threat to public safety, U.S. District Court Judge John Keenan said in sentencing Qasir. Very interesting. It says, prosecutors said Qasir was involved in trying to establish a training camp on property in Bly, Oregon, where Islamist militants could receive military training in preparation for combat in Afghanistan. Very, very interesting and troubling, I might add. Well, just two more items, and then we'll go to the break. And then I hope that we're going to have many people call in and share their views on the news Muslims are making around the world today. Here's one from just today, as a matter of fact, in Pakistan. A few weeks back, we commented and actually reported on the few towns that were being basically set fire by Muslims who were upset because of a supposed Quran desecration in a Christian village in Pakistan. One of the men who was involved there as a Christian fell into jail somehow or another in Pakistan, and he died while in custody. The Muslim captors say that, not captors, the Muslim jail keepers, if you will, say that he committed suicide because he was so upset. But we find that those who were able to examine the body noticed that there were marks, and I quote, "I have seen the body and there were torture marks on it." And what we find if we scratch something a little bit deeper is it says, in a tough statement, Major Lawrence John Saldana and Peter Jacob, respectively chairman and executive secretary of the NCJP, said that they, that is the Muslims, refused to accept the version of local authorities that he committed suicide spontaneously after he was shifted to jail from the police lockup. Further on, it says that what really took place was that this young man and a Muslim girl from a nearby village were in love. In reality, local Muslims did not like the idea that the young man could have a relationship with Hina Asgahar, a young Muslim woman whose mother is said to have witnessed the act of blasphemy. So we see here another, what happened? Isn't this really an honor killing? And yet Rifka Berry says, Muhammad Berry, Rifka Berry's father, there's no such thing as an honor killing. And our last article is something from California. We've got Oregon, California, New York, Pakistan, Italy, all sorts of places tonight. We end up in California. California court bans Ave Maria in public schools allows Islamic prayer.